I went to Governor Rod Blagojevich trial, both trials actually, and he was charged with abuse of power, wire fraud, and using extortion tactics for aggressive campaign contributions. And the main charge was he was he had the intent to try and sell the vacant Senator Obama's seat, which he referred to as the golden ticket. Here's an old power horse at City Hall from the 33rd Ward, Alderman Dick Mell. He was talked about quite a bit at the Blago trial. He was Blago's father-in-law, one of the men, along with his highly connected friends, that helped Blago get the governor's seat. And what does Blago do? He turns his back not only on his father-in-law, but all his father-in-law's powerful friends. And that's when Blago's real troubles started. Now, one of the defendants in this case, Tony Resgo, basically the brains behind the Blago scam that they had going, he was charged with misusing his power as a lobbyist to get big-time kickbacks from local businesses. His wife and his young son were there in court every day to support him. They said this guy owned over 50 Dunkin' Donuts and over 50 P.F. Chang's. There's a real scumbag, politically connected guy, Blago's college buddy. He was a defendant in this case who decided to cooperate. Stuart Levine, he was charged with wire fraud, tax evasion, and he took part of the some of the extortion that was going on. He was sentenced to 5.5 years, and he testified to some pretty nasty things that what him and his friends were up to. Here's the remains of what's left of the old Hilton Purple Hotel there in Skokie. We're in the parking lot. They whacked Alan Dorfman. This is also the hotel where Stuart Levine testified that him and his gay friends would smoke crack, drink, pop pills, do cocaine, all during government business hours. They would have raging parties here. Now, the Blago trial is kind of boring compared to the major mob trials I've been to. But one day I was in court, and the prosecutor showed the jury receipts on the big flat screen monitor, clothing receipts. He spent $450,000 on clothes. He was buying $5,000 Oxford suits, not even counting all his other expenses, just clothing alone. Now, one serious charge was that Blago's team was extorting the president of Children's Memorial Hospital in Lincoln Park. They were demanding more money, or they were going to block federal funds that the president and hospital needed desperately for their new expansion, their new equipment. When the president finally confronted Blago, Blago literally hid in the bathroom to avoid meeting with the men. Now, the main charge in the Rod Blagojevich trial was the intent to sell Obama's vacant Senate seat to the highest bidder. And there was a bribe on the table for $2 million to go to Jesse Jackson Jr. Blago was heard on tape repeatedly talking about this, referring to it as a golden ticket that he's holding. Now here's Patty Blagojevich, Rod's wife. She was in court every day. Her husband was out on bond, so they could both come freely in and out. They got harassed by reporters daily. I remember her telling me one day while we were drinking some water how she taught her daughters to dial 911. God forbid if anything were to happen to them. She basically felt her husband was really getting screwed. Now, if you guys ever do go to the trial, try to make the opening statements or the closing arguments. That pretty much sums it up right there. And at Blago's trial, I'll never understand why him and his team had his daughters come to court in their nice dresses, sat first row during the prosecution's closing arguments, where they were really attacking Blago, rather than have the girls show up during the defense closing, where they said nice things about their dad. I highly recommend Damian Cheros here if you ever get in trouble. This guy's a stud. He represented Blago. He also represented Mark Polkman at the Mike Sarno trial. He represented Chuan Doyle at the Family Secrets trial. I actually spoke to him, and one time I told him, nothing for nothing, but it seems like the prosecutors are a little sharper. They're a little bit more prepared. He said, Jimmy, it's not that. We're all good lawyers. They have more evidence. There you got wonderful father and son, Sam Adams Sr., Sam Adams Jr. The older, distinguished gentleman on the right is a legend in the court buildings. I've seen him in the early 90s represent Gus Alex. And then Sam Adams Jr. there, top defensive lawyer in Chicago today. He represented Rod Blagojevich, put on a hell of a defense, but unfortunately lost the case. Now, every day at both Blago trials, number 1 and number 2, it was a media circus. This was the second governor of Illinois that was indicted on federal corruption charges. Blago was a media magnet. I remember waiting outside one day, waiting on the verdict at the second trial, I believe, and a dog walked by, and this reporter said that Blago, he would talk to the dog. Now, whether we like to admit it or not, all the federal government has to do is show intent. And in this trial, the intent was clear by Blago's big mouth on his home phone that was tapped. He goes on and on and on for hours what his real intentions were with collecting campaign contribution money, to selling Obama's seat, to swearing, and with his wife yelling in the background as well. Now, a minor defendant, minor role at this case, but was a key witness, was the governor's brother, Rob Blagojevich. He was older than his younger brother, Rod, and a military guy, and he got on the stand and was stellar. The prosecutor was really not able to catch him in any lies or any wrongdoing, and as a result, they ended up dropping charges against this guy. Now, here's the prosecutor's skirt that put away Blago. This guy was relentless, very well prepared, very thorough. He destroyed Blago and his defense team. This gentleman here learned from the best. He learned from Patrick Fitzgerald, John Scully, Marcus Funk, and the late, great Mitch Mars. Blago had no choice, no chance up against this fine attorney. Now, here's a no-nonsense federal judge. This guy's a legend at the Dirksen Federal Building, appointed by President Reagan. James Zagel. He presided over the Family Secrets trial. He was also the judge at the Rod Blagojevich trial. He warned Blago and his team numerous times not to defy his orders, not to leak information to the press. They would not listen. So at the end, he gave Blago the max. Here's Blago home free. Obviously, they don't allow you to dye your hair in jail because he showed no remorse and was adamant that he was innocent, despised his voice on numerous tap phone conversations. He was found guilty, sentenced to 14 years, and he got a pardon by Donald Trump.